Everything all right, Pete? What's going on?
What? Yeah, what's going on?
What just happened? You just stopped and were like, what?
Oh, well, we're live on YouTube now, so why don't we officially start the show?
Let's kick it off with another high energy kick.
Hold on, 3, 2.
Not your shitty kid intro.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And I want to have a bone to pick with Pete. You have no right to slam my son right here at the top of the show. He respects you. He asked about Uncle Pete, Uncle Junka over there all the time. Asked what's going on with him. Yeah. Well, what's going on with him? I did, actually, my brother Jonathan, I tried to get my kids to call him Uncle Junka, and my brother hated that.
Yeah, I'm down with it. I'll take it.
Okay, you can be Uncle Junka. Yeah, there you go. My son's theme song, which we played on the last episode of the show, was great. But yes, we did return. It's a hit. It went up to number 5 on the Billboard charts, and it was nominated for 3 Grammys. But I was like, do better.
Wow. Yeah, he's in the Taylor Swift special that drops tonight, right?
He is. Yeah, he's jamming with Jack Kevorkian.
Wow.
Good.
Wow.
Kerouac. No?
You said jamming, and then you were like, oh, fuck. I'm back into myself.
I got to keep going.
Yeah. And then you've started on Jack, which is, okay, there are people named that in music. And then you nailed it. And then you landed it with Kevorkian. An old reference that also doesn't make sense. Yeah.
His music was okay.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think Don't
get me wrong. I think Jack Kevorkian is a great guy. Go ahead.
No. I think your son, what he did was magical. It was really cute and adorable. Mm-hmm. It was really great. I think it's fantastic. But when you're looking at it in comparison to Kimmy Gatewood, who professionally made the song, I'm going to go with that one.
It's time to pass the torch to a new generation. That's what our president-elect has said, and I think Kimmy Gatewood can only stand on top for so long. It's time we incorporated Alex's son's song into the end of the show, perhaps, and it'll slowly creep forward over the next 16 years to the front of the show.
Please, everybody tweet at GSA Pete and encourage him to begin the transition to my son's theme song.
Yes. I'm standing with Kimmy Gatewood. You can't move me. I'm not gonna just
Hashtag steal the theme. Is that what you're going?
Yeah, people have voted. Kimmy Gatewood is an unbelievable person, a star. She is magic, and she was so nice to do our theme song. You can't take that away. You can't do that.
She got the votes. She swears she got the votes. She's the rightful president.
Good stuff. I'll tell you what, we have 2 amazing guests on the show this week that I'm very excited to bring on. And then later on, we're, of course, going to get to your questions in the show. So feel free to drop those in the comments, drop those and answer the question. But we're going to bring in our first guest now. He is the writer of a upcoming original graphic novel called The Naturalist, coming out from Island Press next year. Jim Odaviani. He has written a ton of science-based comic book stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Odaviani, how are you doing?
Hey.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Did I get the last name right, first of all? Did I pronounce
got all the syllables, just a little bit different in
It's great, Alex. You know all the letters, you just don't know how to use any of them.
No, that's the crazy thing about it. Most Italian names, you basically just have to say all the letters you see. So it's Ottaviani.
Oh, Ottaviani.
You're supposed to say it as quickly as possible as the Italian way as well, so you don't have to be corrected. You're just moving so quickly past it.
And your first name is Jaim, right?
Oh, wow.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the book, because this is a great book. This is coming out January 6, 2021.
Actually, no.
Oh, it's not?
It is out as of November 10th.
Oh, my gosh. I am way wrong on that.
No.
I think that's what they said on Amazon, actually. So I apologize about the misinformation. You got to talk to them. Talk to Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, I'll definitely be able to talk to an actual human being next time I contact Amazon. I'm sure that's how it works.
Let's welcome Jim Bezos into the stream. We have only this one issue to deal with you. Nothing else. Everything fine. No notes.
All right. Well, that's great news then. Everybody can go get the book already. It is a true story. Before we get into the story for this book, though, you have been doing graphic novel adaptations of science stories and true science stories for a couple of decades now. Why? Sorry to put a timeline on it. Why did that initially draw you in, and what keeps drawing you back to that particular genre?
Sure, I'll answer the second question first, because it's really easy. There's so much there. Science continues to move and move forward. It almost never moves backwards. And there's always new stuff to learn and new people to learn about. And I'm really curious about the whole scientific endeavor, regardless of the field. I started mainly in the physical sciences, those are the first books that I did. But since then, I've started to work more with some natural sciences, including E.O. Wilson's memoir, which we're talking about today. I guess it started when I was simultaneously a comics reader, a graduate student in engineering. I was a nuclear engineer before getting into comics. Fairly typical career path, I would say. Yeah, classic.
You started on comics, and you started chasing that spider bite, chasing that radioactive, superpowered hit.
Yeah. It's true. I've had more than enough radiation exposure, probably more than enough toxic chemicals. I didn't get to Tibet the 2 times that I was in China, so that's still waiting for me someday. But yeah, no superpowers came about during that phase of my life. But I did start learning about scientists. And, a lot of the equations that you work with, a lot of the things that you do have names attached to them. And I got curious about the people behind those names. Simultaneously, I'm reading comics like one does. And eventually you get to the point where, I've read enough about this character or that character. I want something new. I want something different. Maybe I want something based on reality. And for me, that was science, and I just wasn't seeing it out there. Mm-hmm. And so you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then you wake up one morning and look in the mirror and say, maybe you're the one who's supposed to do this.
Yes.
Started it and nobody's made me stop yet. So it's worked out really well for me.
That's the hero's journey.
Jumping forward to The Naturalist, what I thought was really interesting about this, and full disclosure, I haven't read E.O. Marshall's book. I've just read your adaptation. Okay. But what I was very surprised by was...
it's totally cool.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, there are people... I've got the original right here. Do I? Yes, I do. It's prose. It's kind of thick. It's all words. Mm-hmm. There are people who just will not gravitate to nonfiction that's in that format. And it's good to have other ways of telling stories, right? That's why we got movies. We even have opera. I suppose people like opera. We have musicals. We have graphic novels. So, yeah, no apologies.
Well, to that point, the thing that I was kind of struck by your adaptation, and this sounds ridiculous to say about a graphic novel, but it really does lean into the graphic format. It's very sparse in terms of the dialogue. It instead focuses on action. Is that something that you developed over the time of the science books? Is it something you specifically leaned into with this story? How did that come about?
Well, if you're going to do comics, you need to be sure that the words and the pictures work together. And this is something that my friend Linda Medley always used to say, never ever waste the pictures. So you don't want to waste the pictures, basically. And so, you certainly lean into the scenes when you're doing an adaptation like we did for this book. You, as you say, lean into the scenes that lend themselves to imagery. That means, again, in an adaptation, you're going to have to leave some stuff from the prose book behind because it's too abstract. It's too wordy. Whatever the reason, not all of it's going to fit. The prose book is real quick skim. almost 400 pages long. The publisher didn't want a 400-page graphic novel. I don't think Chris would have been willing to draw 400 pages of comics. It takes long enough to draw comics as it is. So, you're going to do some condensation here. And the things that you look for in an adaptation, again, are the stuff that lends itself visually and carries you through the story arc as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then, because the other thing that I think is kind of fascinating about this book is it focuses on this real life scientist, studied insects, focused on them, and ants in particular, I believe, but it really jumps around throughout his life. And you make this choice, again, this might have been in the original book and I just don't know, but you make this choice where it really is all indicated graphically based on the way that the artist depicts his age. So how did you come around to that format? How did you come around to that storytelling device?
That one I don't know. That just showed up in my head. It's not in the original book, and so I will say that our editor Rebecca and Ed Wilson, Professor Wilson, I never know quite what to say when it comes to an eminent Pulitzer Prize-winning scientist. Just call me Ed, he says. It's like, I'm not sure I can do that.
Down-to-earth scientist. No, give it to him.
But at some point during the development of somewhere between the outline and writing the first draft of the script, I came up with this idea of Wilson interacting with himself, literally talking to himself. I think that's what memoirs are sometimes, are people talking to themselves about themselves. And so to take that literally, we had Wilson of multiple ages in the book and sometimes interacting with each other. And Professor Wilson and Rebecca were not 100% sure that was something that they liked or something that they wanted. But once we got to the thumbnail stage where, Chris is starting to show what it's actually going to look like, it's not just words on it, page 1, panel 1, this happens, these people say these things. Once they actually saw it, they got on board pretty fast. And it's one of those things that you can do in comics that's not easy to do in other media. And I'm really grateful that they were willing to give Chris and me the chance to play around with what comics are really good at. So we got the chance of having, a kid Wilson, middle-aged Wilson, and what quickly turned into a shorthand PDW, present-day Wilson, in the script, all talking to each other on the page. And
what I like about that, I think it really works because he becomes the specimen, sort of, and then the book becomes like a look at him as the subject of the science in a way.
That's a really great way to put it. Nobody said that before. So
journalist.
Good on you.
Don't feed his ego. Please don't feed his ego.
No, it's great. When my memoir is eventually published, hopefully this moment will be.
Oh, man.
It's clearly key.
It's key. It's huge.
Talk about insects a little bit, because I think most people, myself included, are kind of creeped out by bugs, but obviously that's something that you had to live with, both by writing it, but also repeatedly looking at the art, vetting the art, working on the art. Was that something you were reticent about at all? Did you get a greater appreciation for insects?
Let me boil it down. The question is, are you scared of bugs?
I was trying to sound smart there, like you, Justin.
Okay, cool.
I have a healthy respect for many bugs. I'm a guy who walks into the woods and immediately has a cloud of mosquitoes around me. This is not true of my wife, and she actually didn't believe this until we started doing more hiking together. And the first time we walk into the woods, I was maybe 10 meters ahead. Oh, hello, my assistant is here.
Oh,
yes.
Hi, assistant.
Wow, that's a big cat or a small
it's a fish
bear.
island,
a small man.
Yeah. So bugs seem to like me.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like them. I got bitten really, really badly in China a couple of years ago by the red-headed caterpillar that they have. It's about yay long.
Oh wow!
Very
and
long.
has a neurotoxin that can kill mice. And I'll tell you that it didn't kill me. It won't kill humans, but it hurts a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified that it didn't kill you, because I got worried there, and then you cleared it up. So thanks.
It just happened 5 minutes ago, and he's spending his last moments finishing this up.
I'm dedicated to publicity in my craft.
It's good. That's the spirit. I'm very much like your wife. Bugs do not bite me. It's mosquitoes, and my children are constantly covered in bug bites. I'm like, I didn't even notice. I'm so sorry.
Right. That's
I smell weird.
Charmed life.
Yeah, and maybe I just smell like prey, which
Tasty.
Well, hello. You really are social tonight.
No, that's great. We love it. We've only had a cat one time before on a show, and coincidentally, it was the last time we had a guest from Valiant Comics. Our next guest on the show is also from Valiant Comics. So I think those shows, they attract cats. That's what's going on here. That's
okay, good news. But anyway, to the actual question of bugs in the book, no, it didn't creep me out at all. One thing is, I got to keep them at Latin name length most of the time. The real hard work was for Chris, because it's easy for me to say, all right, in this panel, it's going to be blah-de-blah, blah-de-blah. And then Chris goes and has to find something that's accurate, because we knew that when Wilson looked at the thumbnails, he was, this is the guy who wrote the book Ants. It's this gigantic, unabridged dictionary-sized book called Ants. So if it didn't look right, he was going to say something. So fortunately, Chris found this resource called Antipedia, and it's got I'm
on Antipedia all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to know about your browser history. We're not that close yet. So he actually had to do the really heavy lifting on that part and make sure that they were accurate. And then, of course, Hillary, colored them accurately as well. So for me, it was actually really easy and quite interesting, because, of course, I learned a lot about ants in particular. But bugs and snakes
what's the most interesting thing you picked up from your research on putting this together?
Oh my gosh! Well, I don't want to give myself too much credit for research. The rule I was given for this book, which is very different from any of the other books that I've done, is stick with the original text. They wanted an adaptation of this. They did not want sort of a broad overview of Wilson's life. So I really only had one book to read. I cheated. I did read other things by him. I did listen to interviews, in part to try to get get his speaking voice down a little bit. But what did I guess the favorite anecdote that I didn't get to stick into the book is Wilson finally gets his hands on a fossilized or amber encased specimen of one of the earliest ants. You know how the evolutionary tree works. There's sort of an ant, as they say.
Yes.
And he gets one of these sent to him, and almost immediately drops it, and it cracks open. Right? Yeah, everybody's going.
No.
It cracks open. Fortunately, it cracked in just the way so that one ant was preserved in one side and another was on the other, so it didn't ruin the specimen. But it wasn't part of the book, so we didn't get to put it in there. And so I guess that's
high. That's like Jurassic Park high drama.
Exactly.
That should be on the end of his cane. He should be walking around doing something bad with it.
Yeah, and generating gigantic 1950s science fiction movie Ants somewhere 50 pages later, but no, didn't get to do it.
Now that you've written about so many different scientists, I think your last book before this one was about Stephen Hawking, if I'm correct.
You're close. There was one in between called Astronauts. About Mary Cleave, a not particularly well-known astronaut, but who is actually really cool. But anyway, Hawking is the big science. Mary would call herself an engineer. rather than a scientist.
But I guess what I was curious about is you've written so many notable scientists. You plumbed the depths a little bit and found some lesser known specimens, if we will. What's next? What's sort of like your white whale in terms of science graphic novels?
Oh, wow. I've got a few in various stages of contract negotiation.
You can blow that
outline. Pardon?
You can blow that here. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just
Are you
blow
telling
the
me nobody's
contract
listening or watching?
Yeah, no. This is private. Yeah.
Okay. I've got a few in various stages of work. One I think I can talk a little bit about. One I'm doing more on a broad concept rather than a particular scientist, and it's about the limits of human performance. So that'll touch on physics, biology, neuroscience, all sorts of things. And this is something, as a longtime runner, I've been interested in for a while. And we're seeing records regularly being broken, but by smaller and smaller increments.
Yeah.
So we're starting to wonder, what are the actual limits of what a person can do? How high could someone jump? How fast can someone run over X distance?
Yeah. Are you saying that we're peaking? Says Liwana in the comments. Are we peaking as a species right now?
Oh, I don't know.
Answer us. You have to tell us.
I'm not finished with the research. Check back with me in a few years.
All right. Okay, no problem.
Or just check back with the book when it comes out.
Sure.
I think that, just talking very specifically, there have always been scientists who will say that nobody can run a mile in 4 minutes. It would kill you. Turned out that wasn't true at all, right? But when you start to look at how much load you can put on someone's femur, how much muscle you can lay around it, how hard you could basically press against a track to move forward, there probably are, in fact, hard limits on what a human can do without starting to reinforce bones. And again, leaving aside all sorts of, illegal and typically very dangerous chemical enhancements that people try that have just horrible downstream effects. So yeah, there probably are limits, but that doesn't make it any less fun to compete, right? Or to do things.
Yeah.
I mean, we may be seeing the best tennis player ever in Serena Williams. You still like watching, if you're a tennis fan, you still like watching two other really good players play. So
it would be crazy if you only wanted to watch the best of anything. You're like, I'm only a fan of simply the best. I don't watch anything that has any sort of second place. Second place is the first loser, said my Bullies t-shirt in high school.
Yeah, that's sort of the fourth grade fandom sort of thing. It's like, I'm a really big fan of whoever won the World Series this year or whoever's the NBA champion.
Jim, before we let you go, I just want to get back to the Naturalist, talking about bugs a little bit. Can you settle debate for us? Ants or A Bug's Life?
Wow.
It's been a long time since I've seen either, but I got to say Bug's Life has stuck in my head more.
Yeah, 100%.
So
that was the correct choice.
That's the correct answer.
That was the correct choice. We were going to delete this interview if you said ants.
Okay. You answered correctly. Congratulations. You won the ant quiz.
Excellent. Oh, yeah. Sorry, ants. Yeah. I mean, ants are really cool, but that movie, just for whatever reason, isn't memorable to me, and it sounds like I'm in good company.
Yes, the science wasn't behind ants. There's a Z.
A Bug's Life. Yes, absolutely. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show. Congratulations on the book, which is out now. So everybody
out now. Check it out.
Yeah. Have a great. We'll talk to you in a couple of years when the next book comes out.
Yes, and tell us if we peaked. Thanks. Email me if I've peaked specifically. Just let me know.
Oh, I already know the answer.
All right, we're gonna cut you off before you answer it. Goodbye, Jim.
Now.
Bye.
Get him out of here.
I like him.
Thanks, Pete.
Good guy.
Once again, that's Jim Odaviani. I got that horribly wrong
That's
again.
good.
Yeah, I messed that up worse than at the beginning of the show. With the Naturalist, a graphic adaptation, which is out now. Book's really great. Like we were kind of talking about it, we didn't really stick on too much, but very accessible, I think, at the same time. Even if you don't know the science, it's still a really good story, and you're going to learn more about ants and A Bug's Life. And now we're going to invite...
The Russian guys from A Bug's Life are in this graphic novel, correct? Like they're a part of a major
It's
part
in canon. It's in the Pixar canon, yes.
Good.
All right, let's invite our next guest into the show here. We love talking to this guy, Dennis Hallum. He's the new writer on Manowar over at Valiant. He's also done some amazing runs of stuff at Marvel and other places. He's also currently working on the Image comic books, Sea of Stars with Jason Aaron's, that is really cool. But the second issue of Manowar comes out tomorrow, and that's the main thing we're going to be talking about here. Good old Manowar as he works his way into the stream.
It's hard to tell when you're vamping and when you're finishing your actual introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Hallum! Hello!
It's disconcerting because I've been here since the beginning, but I couldn't see myself until right before you put me on there, so I had to make sure my camera was ready.
No, you look great, and I love the living room.
I know. You look like you're in a ski lodge somewhere.
Yeah.
I inherited this house and completely renovated it, so I had to buy everything brand new like a year ago. So it looks like I'm much fancier than I am. Really, I just had nothing.
That's the spirit.
Killing it. You're killing it.
Des, good to see you again. Good to talk to you again. Very excited about Manowar, which first issue is out, second issue hits tomorrow. One of the things that I love about this run is that every Manowar, and we've liked a lot of the runs on Manowar, is always very intense, very time travel, dark Visigoth action. And here, you've got that action, but at the same time, he's hanging out with a family and having a little fun with the robot that lives in his brain. What led to this new take?
Mainly just me not wanting to follow those runs with the same thing, because I was afraid I wouldn't do it better. But yeah, whenever Heather approached me, I'm pretty sure the book is very much what I do, you know, like finding the humanity, finding the relatability of a character. And when Heather approached me, I'm pretty sure she wanted that. But also, yeah, reading those runs, it's like, well, they're really good at badass Exo punching through things and ending alien invasions. I don't want to do that. Let's do something else. And so, yeah, like finding a community for him and bringing it down to our Earth now and making it more relatable was sort of the very first conversation we had about the book. 100 years ago, this book, I swear to God, I wrote the first issue like 2 states ago. The combination of just a lot of lead time and then COVID, like, I have to remind myself what happens in the first couple issues.
Oh, wow.
Wait, so how far are you in at this point then?
Well, I had written issue 4 when we got pencils down in March and was working on the plot outline for the next arc. We have roughed in the next 2 arcs, but yeah, I have complete plot outlines. Had complete plot outlines written, I think, for 5, 6, and 7 when I stopped, and that was in March. So I've got a lot of Exo in my head, and there's very little Exo in the world, so it's hard to remember what I can say and what I can't.
It's been spinning in the brain for a while.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, as someone who's a fan of Valiant, I've tried to read Manowar a bunch of times, and it always felt like so intense, or like I didn't know the history, so I wasn't really getting everything. I really appreciated how, like, you weren't being like nothing happened before. This was just kind of a more relatable take on it, and I found it very accessible. And I went from being kind of like a little worried about reading this, a little stressed out, to being like, oh wow, this is great. This is something that now that I have like this entry point, I can go back and maybe understand the other ones a little bit more. I think it was just a great kind of mix of humor and kind of like intro to this kind of world. You had mentioned that was going to be your take on it, but was it something that like you were worried would be too different to turn people off?
I try not to worry about it too much. The nice thing about it is when Heather at Antos is my editor on the book, and when she originally called me, we were on exactly the same page. Like the thing we wanted to do with it was really similar. Like she was saying things like build Thor Ragnarok from the ground up and make it, like more human and more relatable, and get a supporting cast in there that's in the here and now. So I knew that's what, at least on the company level, they wanted. And I wrote Avengers Arena, so I don't worry that much about what fans are going to yell at me online.
Great.
Good for you. Good for you.
I probably should have been.
That was one of the first books I read that I was like, whoa, this punches hard and doesn't care what happens afterwards. And
that was my first ongoing, and I had no idea the shit show that I was in for.
I loved every minute of it. It was great.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the book, but I took a beating right out of the gate. So I try not to worry too much about what the people who don't like it are going to say, and just hope that there are enough of the people that do that I can satisfy that.
Well, talk about building the. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Let me just say what I love about this Exo Manowar is you really feel him being out of time twice. He's like from the far too past, and sort of he's so futuristic, and then when he's on doing everyday stuff, he's like, wait, what the fuck is this? And he's like, that sort of double out of step with everyone I haven't seen that before, and I really appreciate that. It's really smart.
Yeah, I feel like the anachronism of it is something that, because he was always dealing with such crazy threats, they never really played that up. But our modern society is so different from, like you say, like the world he grew up in, where they were just trying to survive the Roman Empire, and they weren't concerned about the same things we are in a modern era. And then, he was thrown into space and all of these crazy wars that he's had to fight. So, like in the first issue, we have him catch a crashing spaceship and land it and keep it from hitting the city and killing hundreds of thousands of people. But he parks it in the middle of rush hour traffic, and everyone hates him for it because they're late to work. And he can't be bothered to care about that. But Shannara understands, and the thing we'll be dealing with in the book, if you don't have the people on your side, you're not going to be able to do much of anything because everyone will hate you. So it does matter, like the way it looks matters, PR matters, which is a weird thing for him. Even the notion that anyone's going to have any thought about how he saved all of their lives is really difficult for Eric to deal with.
I was curious to hear you talk about the supporting cast, because obviously we know Exo Manowar from reading the previous books, or anybody who has read the previous book obviously knows him. But I think you could hook into the character pretty easily. The other characters are completely fresh, completely new. So how did you go about building that supporting cast to make the rest of the concept work?
The idea was to have him be a traditional superhero. So he's trying to make people's lives better. He's trying to save the city, help the city, but he's way too powerful for it. So initially it was, what would the initial reaction if this guy just starts wandering around your neighborhood be? And like, if you're a single mom that's trying to make ends meet and he keeps crashing the buildings, you just think he was this terrifying force that you want out of your neighborhood. If you're a kid that lives there, it's awesome. Like Superman lives next door, and what he's doing is amazing. And so that's kind of how we built the main relationship there, is a mother-son that he interacts with, who at first she can't stand him and tells him that he's a creep and needs to leave her kid alone. And the kid thinks he's awesome, and he kind of wins them over. So it was sort of like, who would he interact with organically? And then how can we build those relationships to be something that works? And then there's a homeless character that he runs into who is ignored largely by most of the people in the neighborhood, but to him it's just another person he can help, and that relationship starts to build. So we're growing. The idea was to grow a community around him slowly based on who he would interact with, and not have it be too terribly forced.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, there's always this temptation with a shared superhero universe to bring in the big name characters right off the bat, whether to goose sales or because it's exciting to use them. It almost seems like Valiant goes the other way sometimes, that it's like, no, let's establish these concepts first and then get into that. Where do you fall, at least with this Exo Manowar run?
Initially, we definitely wanted to build, because it is so different from the previous runs. We wanted to build the world that Exo lives in first, and we have to build threats that are credible. That's the other thing. Like, PR disasters are bad for him, but they're not that bad for him. Like, at some point, there's got to be the big crazy Thor Ragnarok of the book, and you got to build that from the ground up, because the book's so realistic. Like, it takes place very much in our world, except for the Valiant characters live there. But at the same time, Cullen Bunn is writing Shadow Man. He's a good friend of mine, and I always wanted to destroy Cullen's career and his life and everything about it. So if I can trump completely chump Shadow Man at some point in the near future. I'll do that. And Colin and I have discussed that. So it's coming, but yeah, we want the books to kind of establish themselves first, which I like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So you guys are pushing that crossover, not editorial or anything.
Oh yeah, I can't say for sure that they even care what we think, but we are definitely sending them gifts and asking all the time. So we'll see.
Yeah. We got a question here over on YouTube. CT Kook says, I just read your Cloak and Dagger run. I feel like they're really underused. Any chance of you bringing them back sometime? That's your choice, right?
My Cloak and Dagger run, I have no say in that. My Cloak and Dagger run is a weird beast because it was going to be part of a big digital first comics initiative that kind of blew up on takeoff. Like they had a big plan and then it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. So the books were released digitally first and with no promotion behind them because they just kind of shifted gears. And then they came out in trade form with no single issues. Also, it was in the worst part of my divorce that I wrote and promoted all of that. So I kind of don't remember it, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to guess I'm not Marvel's like a #1 plan for Cloak and Dagger going forward.
And that was tied around the TV series, right?
Well, that was the thing. They wanted to release it in line with the TV series. Then they decided to do this digital initiative. And then, so ours was out first, but was going to be the second one released with that. And then they changed their minds, but we were already in production. So it was kind of just like through no fault of anyone's, the business of it didn't work out. And so it kind of snuck under the radar. Callie Thompson did a Jessica Jones book in that same line that was amazing. It had the same problem. Like it just didn't get a lot of eyeballs because the promotional plan got dropped. But I love those characters. And I think a lot of creators love those characters. And I think at some point, someone's going to do something that blows them up as big as they should be because it's a really interesting concept. But yeah, my run was not that.
I think the last time we talked to you was like 2 New York Comic Cons ago or something like that, and when you were pretty heavy into writing the wrestling comics. We have a couple of questions here just about AEW comics, WWE comics. Which side of the line do you fall on?
I had to watch so much wrestling when I was writing the book. I love wrestling, big wrestling fan. I was a huge WWE fan, so I got the job. In order to write those books, because for people who don't know, what our WWE books did was dance between the raindrops of stuff that happened in WWE storylines from the recent past. So I would take disparate storyline things and tie them together and make them make sense and tell stories within that. I had to rewatch so much of the same 2 years of WWE content at the same time that they were expanding. Like NXT was getting longer and they made SmackDown a show you had to watch, that when I got done with the book, like I just completely dipped out for 2 years. And AEW sort of happened within that. So I've seen a couple episodes of AEW. I have friends that talk to me about it all the time. But I don't have a horse in the race. And yeah, what'll happen, what always happens with me in wrestling is I go a few years without watching it, and then I dive into Wikipedia for 5 hours one night and catch up, and then I start watching it again.
It's amazing how much like comics continuity it is, how like it's very wild. It's created on the fly. From my observation of it, a friend of mine works over there, and I'm like, I can't believe how that was made or produced and everything. And then it's canon, and everyone is such a canon head for wrestling as much as comics that to have to rewatch that and then boil it down and sort of put it in one stack to be a story in a comic is daunting. It
was challenging sometimes. Well, also there was weird restrictions on it. Like I wrote a short story for one of the WrestleMania collections, and it involved, I was trying to make the continuity of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon getting together make sense with them having actually gotten married and then not just be this gross thing from the 90s. And my pitch worked, the storyline worked, and then I sent it to them, and they made me take a bunch of scenes out because they don't ever want their actual relationship and loving interactions to be in character. So like I had to take all the love out of a love story. Wow. Which makes sense. I mean, they're real people. They don't want it to be about their actual lives. But yeah, there were a few things where it was even more difficult because of the restrictions they put on the character. And at the time, like Roman Reigns couldn't ever be wrong or do anything bad. And so that it was challenging to put him in peril when he had to be perfect.
What's more difficult, wrestling comics or superhero comics in terms of restrictions?
WWE was actually pretty cool for the most part. Like those two examples were the only guff that I got, and I think it helped that what we were doing was helping their continuity make sense, so fans loved it. I haven't had too much trouble with superhero comics. The hardest thing I ever did was try to make Cable make sense in my own head when I was writing Cable and X-Force. Wikipedia is even weirder than the Undertaker's. Like if you try to take all of that and put it into the life of one person, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But actually, that's kind of the process I took with EXO. Is people don't know all of this crazy, but this crazy has affected him. I did the same thing with Cable. Like if you reference it all the time, only the people that have read that stuff are going to get it. But if you understand that he's been through that and you can kind of put the weight of it on him, then it's a comic that makes sense for new readers, but also old readers are like, oh, okay, this is the Cable or Eric that I know from previous runs.
I'm a big fan of your Spider-Woman run as well. And it sort of is your process when you come out on a new character like that, where do you sit with it for a while and sort of let that all filter through, and then sort of drive the story through the most interesting parts, or just, I guess, what's your process when approaching a new character with like a big continuity background?
It depends on Spider-Woman's a weird case because they had us launched that in the worst way at the worst time, because she was a non-Spider connected character who was a big part of Spider-Verse, and our first 4 issues took place in the middle of Spider-Verse. So and then like I have the omnibus because I have stories in it. Is like that thick, and we're in the middle of that when we started. So it starts like on an alien world, and they're on lizard horses, and it was just really hard to explain what was happening. Like, it was not new reader friendly at all. And then at the same time, we got the Milo Manara butt cover was our issue number 1 pre-release scandal. I forgot about that. I'll never forget it. So my pitch for Spider-Woman sort of didn't happen until the book had already been out and already had the scandal and people hated it. And so for that book, we wanted to launch a new idea with her, but didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And then my idea was like, Jessica hated Spider-Verse, hates trying to explain what it was like, and wants to go back to brass tacks and do something simple. And so the idea kind of came out of my own personal frustration with crossovers. So like she just lived through a crossover and hates it, so now she wants to go be a PI and help people at the street level.
Nice.
So it's all for me. It's always about trying to make it relatable, but how do you get a hook out of that is the hard part. Like you got to compete with all of these other big action movie ideas, and I'm like, well, I want to, she's going to drink coffee in the city and help people and fall in love with all the weird stuff I did in the book.
It's so funny to hear you say that, where it started and where it ended, where she's like, well, I've settled down.
We got another question here in the comments from Josh. He says, really loving Sea of Stars. What is the collaborative element on that book like?
That's my favorite thing about that book, is the way we write that book. Jason and I are good friends. He lives here in Kansas City too, and we had talked for years about doing a project, but we could never come together on what it was because we have very different sensibilities when it comes to like plot ideas. And then we met Stephen Green at a comic convention. He's a huge fan of Jason's work, and I saw all of the buzzards circling. All the writers wanted to work with Stephen because he was available. And so I went to Jason's table and I'm like, this is the guy that's going to draw our book. And he's like, we don't have an idea. And it doesn't matter. We're going to tell him we have an idea. And we're going to get him locked in, and then we'll figure something out. So what we came up with is a Jason book and a Dennis book that take place in the same universe and are told simultaneously. So I write everything with the dad, and it's written like a horror movie. Like his son is lost in space, and everything in space wants to kill him, and he's a very risk-averse person who is trying to get his kid back. And Jason writes a children's book in the same universe where the kid has powers so nothing can hurt him, and he's just enjoying the wonder of space and all of these things that try to kill his dad, like fun creatures. So we sort of loosely talk about what's going to happen in the arc and what's going to happen in the issue, and then we go write our parts. And occasionally we have to kind of finesse some things that don't make sense, but for the most part, I don't read Jason's stuff until it's written, and vice versa.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's almost like exquisite corpse style in a way.
Yeah.
So That's fascinating. What else is coming up for you before we let you go here, Dennis?
So much that I can't talk about yet. I had 2 big Marvel projects that got killed by COVID because we were right at that level where we had agreed to do it, but hadn't done anything yet. And a lot of that stuff fell off the side. So I had to develop new stuff over there, and I had like 3 months of nothing to do. So I went hard in the paint at Creator Owned. So I have, I think, 5 Creator Owned books that have at least maybes at different publishers. So like awesome. Next year, I'll have so much to talk about. But contracts are being signed and things are being worked out with artists, and so not a ton. But Sea of Stars is coming out still. I think our 3rd issue of the second arc just came out. Jason and I are working on the next 2. So that'll be out for the next few months. And then, EXO just ramping back up. So we'll have more issues of that. And like I said, that's planned for a while. So follow that. And then, just watch my Twitter. I'll announce everything else as soon as I can.
Awesome. Cool. Dennis, congratulations. Exo Manowar is great. All the rest of the stuff is great. So good chatting with you. Oh, wait, before we let you go, we do have one question that we always ask everybody. Ants or A Bug's Life?
It's not a fair question because nobody saw ants more than once.
Yeah, no one's going to pick ants.
Like, I saw ants on cable.
I'm still going to try.
And A Bug's Life is not my favorite Pixar movie. My kids like it. I'm going to say ants because I don't remember ants and I don't like A Bug's Life very well. So ants. My answer is ants.
There you go.
There we go. Thanks, Dennis. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Good night, man.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, once again, Exo Manowar. Number 2 coming out tomorrow from Valiant Comics. And also remember that it's not easy being the middle child of 18 billion.
Stop.
What was that?
That's ants in a nutshell.
Wow.
No, this is ants in a nutshell.
Oh, boy. Wow. Dad joke.
Immersed in the movie Ants. It's too bad.
Oh, boy. All right, it's time for our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It's your audience question.
Yeah.
And for that, all you have to do is ask a question either in the comments over on YouTube or over on Crowdcast. Drop us a question, ask a question. Looks like we got a ton there already, so I think we're going to start going to Crowdcast, and then we'll go over to YouTube and see what's going on. First question here. From Kevin.
Wait. What are you drinking?
Oh, what you drinking?
Yeah.
Sure. I am actually, I'm finishing off because it's the end of the season, my pumpkin whiskey.
Whiskey?
Alex,
straight whiskey, bro?
Alex guzzling pumpkin whiskey because it's too close to winter.
Ice?
No ice.
When the temperature
like
turns 40
style, bro. Yeah. Damn. Straight whiskey, no ice.
Sorry, I don't put it in Kool-Aid or whatever the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
You guys drink like opposite ends of the human experience. Children and adults, children and aging men. At midnight on December 15th, all pumpkin turns into beautiful carriages for Cinderella.
Yes. And it smells like nutmeg and cinnamon and wonderful spices.
Disgusting.
What are you drinking, Justin?
I've got a little Lager of the Lakes from Bell's. Very lovely, light, metallic refresco.
Excellent.
Metallic? You want metallic when you're drinking?
I do, in a nice little lager like this.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Pete?
I'm drinking drinking some white rum and mixing it with some different soda stuff.
Soda stuff?
Where do you get off? Criticizing?
You're just insulting Alex and you're like, white rum and soda stuff? Strawberry soda? What are you? You're like when they sweep up after a sporting event, pour that into a bottle.
Before you take that away, Mr. Janitor.
I'll mention we haven't been in person for a while. We haven't been to a bar, but when we used to go to a bar, a new place in particular, Pete would always sidle up and say, "What do you have at a Coca-Cola Freestyle?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
don't you
Ben
just
the Border
run
Collie
it
says,
down
truly
the
the
line?"
garbage plate of drinks. That's what you're drinking.
Back to Kevin's question. There have been plenty of dogs, cats, and monkeys, but what animal do you think we don't get nearly enough of in comics? What animal is underserved in comics, you guys?
Ants, obviously.
Sure.
Obvi.
What about hummingbirds?
Okay. All right.
Sure. I don't like them, but cockroaches, not a lot of those.
I feel like they're featured a lot in panels.
Yeah, I feel
They're
like
not
they
stars.
play.
That's true.
Yeah.
Joe's
Play
apartment.
villains a lot of times.
Joe's apartment again. Wow.
Great
Alex,
comic book.
It's like you stepped out of 1993 and refused to go back.
Oh God, really though.
A lot of sloth love in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to kind of say flying squirrel.
I
But
feel like
Squirrel
they're-
Girl. There is that.
Yeah. It's different though. But
There we go. Sloth is a good one, I think. All right, let's go over to YouTube. Got a controversial one right off the bat here, though he may not even know it, from Lion Man. Do any of you guys check out Marvel 616 on Disney Plus yet? Thoughts? Have either of you watched this documentary show on Disney Plus? And I'll explain the controversy.
Yes.
If you haven't gotten to it.
I have not watched it yet, but I do want to, though I heard the best of it is the first, 5 minutes.
Oh, wait, which was the best 5 minutes?
They were the very beginning, the opening bit.
Oh, when they do the flip and they show the Marvel comics, is that what you're talking
No, the whole opening sort of segment.
about? Oh, okay.
I have heard. I'm sorry. We're terrible comic book fans. Have not checked it out yet. But I heard the Women of Marvel episode is particularly excellent. Apparently, Louise Simonson is in it, and at one point they're showing off original artwork of Longshot. It's all about Sana Amanat creating Miss Marvel.
That's awesome.
Sounds
That's
like
cool.
a very cool episode. The one everybody focused on, though, was the Dan Slott episode, which is about the Marvel method. And apparently people were freaking out online. I sort of came late to it. I basically saw it through Chip Zdarsky doing some subtweet about it, and then had to retroactively figure out what was going on. But as far as I can tell, the idea is people are pretty upset that Dan is always late on deadlines and coming in late with his scripts, and writes things Marvel method, which is writing the outline and then having the artist work off that before going back and doing the script, which, mind you, is the same way that Stan Lee did it or anything like that.
How dare he write the Marvel method at Marvel Comics?
Right. And I will say this. The thing that was crazy about this, again, catching up, have not seen the episode, so maybe it is a real damning episode for Dan Slott, is, do you know who the first person who would tell you they're terrible with deadlines and really bad at it? Dan Slott. He has done it every time we've ever talked to him.
That's not a secret. And he's always like, ugh, gotta go home and write 9 scripts tonight. And it's like, oh shit, dude, that's a lot. That should be a homework assignment for us. We should watch it and come back with our hottest takes next week.
I agree.
Okay.
My hot take is going to be, I like comics.
Nice, good. That's the freshest.
Hot take.
From a man on this show who at one point was like, I hate comics.
Yep.
Remember when you read that Marvel comic?
Yes.
And you lost your mind?
Yeah. Oh, right. I remember that. Now I know.
It was called Ten of Swords.
Nope.
No, it wasn't.
That's
I
you.
like Ten of Swords.
That's you. That's
Good
you.
stuff.
You're thinking.
Yeah. Let's get an argument.
I was
about
talking
that.
about a different Jonathan Hickman comic book. that I
Yes,
didn't like.
it's 100% what it was.
Edward Doherty says, I know comic books are make-believe and this could never happen, but if there were a crisis death metal-like event on the podcast, what elements of comic book club continuity would each of you like erased, retconned, or altered in some way? Would Pete make a deal with the devil so that his Jedi marriage just never happened? Or maybe you would just like to describe something embarrassing you did once.
That question took a turn.
Yes,
That's a
it
great
did.
question and a dangerous offer all rolled into one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
It could have taken a dangerous turn when I turned and told Jim Lee that he was the king of San Diego drunkenly in his hotel room. That could have been a death.
Other people were there. It wasn't just you two in a whole hotel room.
No one said it was
party.
just. Oh yeah, Alex was there. Pete, where were you?
Yeah, were you outside with Kyle Baker getting high?
That's right. Jim Baker, Kyle Baker. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You can't blame a guy
Sure.
for doing that. You know?
We all chose our adventures that night.
Yeah, we sure did.
Sounds like you wouldn't retcon that, though. Justin.
No, I would not retcon it. But I'm just saying it could have easily, with a little turn of the screw, gone into a sort of a Reservoir Dog style standoff.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so you're going sort of more like Elseworlds than Crisis. Like that.
I don't know. Like Justin, maybe something we want to retcon is bringing up a Spider-Woman comic to a guest on the show. You know what I mean?
What?
And
What do
then
you
watch their faces. They relive the butt nightmare right before our eyes.
No, that was really fascinating. I thought he was super
thought it was
honest
great.
about that.
I mean, but talking to Dennis is so great because he is like, well, here's all this stuff that made it hard, and here's how I came out of that with a story that I like, and I think that's more writer's experience than not, and I like that he's straight up about it.
I agree.
And honestly, do you remember when the Spider-Woman butt cover came out? It was such a firestorm, and I forgot that it was his first issue that he was dealing with.
No, that's
crazy.
why it was crazy that you brought that up. Just to see him go, the butt cover. Oh, that was very funny.
I'll tell you what, it sounds like to me we would change nothing.
Yeah, we're perfect. No, but I mean, part of death metal is events are just twisted a little bit to the dark side. It's not necessarily a retcon. Yeah. So I mean,
think if we could have ramped it up a little bit, and you could have gotten into a physical altercation with Recremender over Frankencastle, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Let me be honest; it almost was there. That is a very light retcon.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't there for that one. I was getting high with Kyle Baker, so
I can't blame you, buddy. Living the dream.
Compared stories of when we got high.
Yeah,
with
that's
Kyle
weird.
Baker.
I guess we all did that individually. Let's go over to YouTube again. This is from Anthony Latch. What's your favorite kind of Thanksgiving food that you don't mind dropping on your comics while reading?
Ooh.
Nice.
Well, I don't want to drop anything on my comics. You know, I have plastic between food and comics at all time because I don't trust the way
At
I
all
eat.
times.
Well, you eat other comics, right? So that should be fine.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I would never destroy art.
You get your meals bagged and boarded and graded, right, Pete?
Yeah,
You're like, this is a really good Thanksgiving. I'm gonna get it graded at Comic-Con.
Want to seal in the freshness. Yeah.
Man, what could you drop on a comic that would be okay? Not green bean casserole. You couldn't drop mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, maybe turkey if it was made wrong. Like if it was a real dry turkey, that would be bad.
That's what I'm saying. The thing with all Thanksgiving foods is they're all moist. They're all nice and moist. So it's not
You're doing it right.
But I would say I love stuffing so much, I'd drop it anywhere.
Yeah.
Put a little
First
stuffing
Up
in
guy
my
says
pocket.
canned cranberry sauce, and that actually works like silly putty. If you put it on the comic, it picks it up from the printed page.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So my favorite panels are read off of a gelatinous cranberry knob.
Here's a question from Ben the Border Collie. And by the way, I want to frame this in. I honestly love everybody getting really personal with these questions. I think these are great.
Me too.
Do you all ever get nervous doing this show? I know after years of teaching, I'm pretty comfortable in front of students, but put me in front of other teachers and I'll get quickly flustered. Do the guests matter? How about live audience versus streamed audience? What about having to answer overly personal questions like this one? Well, I answered the last part. But what do you guys think? Do you still get nervous at any point doing the show?
I think that during the live show, I do not. There are certain.
Are you saying you're pretty comfortable on the live stage?
Yeah,
Because you literally lay down. You're laying down on the. I still remember you.
Oh yeah, you gotta relax. I think it gets tough sometimes for certain guests. I mean, when we had Seth Meyers on, and well, what's this? I can't believe I'm breaking on his
Bill
name.
Hader.
Bill Hader. I was nervous because they kind of overtook the show, and I wasn't sure what we were actually going to be, how it would kind of work, because people didn't want to hear us; they wanted to hear them. So
you're saying, just to clarify, the last time you were nervous was almost exactly 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about like so nervous that I was like, I get a little nervous before shows and stuff like that, but that's just normal kind of nerves. But I mean, like the only time like a guest would really affect me was like, that was a huge show where I felt like, oh crap, how's this going to unfold?
Yeah. The only times I get nervous, the times in general I get nervous are when I'm pulling a prank on someone. For whatever reason, I get so hyped that I I'm like, oh my God, is this going to go? Is this going to happen? Is it going to work? And that's when, like, truly, it's the rare time I feel my heart racing when I'm doing some sort of performance thing. But the times on this show when I've been nervous are mostly during, like, our Comic-Con coverage days. Like when we would be sitting down with Doc, the guys,
the Venture Brothers guys,
the Venture Brothers guys,
yeah,
because those guys were actively trying to fuck with us, and I was like, these bastards are gonna get us. We have to get strong right now. It was usually Alex and I. It was like, we gotta win these. They win them this year.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily the interviews that make me nervous, because I think we've done enough of these that, like, we could slip into a mode where we're doing them. And also, if it's the three of us doing them, I know that if I flub something, one of you are going to jump right in and pick it right up. So I don't worry about that. It's more about the prep more than anything that I get worried about. Like, just getting everything as correct as humanly possible, knowing that I'm probably going to fuck it up during the interview, but just like, honestly, before the show, just looking through the Naturalist pages, reminding myself what Dennis Hallum did, even though I know that stuff and have been browsing through it over the course of the week beforehand, just making sure that it was front of mind so that it didn't suddenly disappear, whether I needed to use it or not. That's the thing that makes me nervous, personally.
No.
Yeah, that's 100% right. But as far as stepping up to the plate with my two boys over here, never nervous. I mean, I'm married to one of these men.
Yes, there you go.
Jedi.
This is from Nelson.
Married.
This is from Nelson Martinez over on YouTube. Speaking of wrestling, what would your guys' WWE wrestling characters and entrances be like if you were wrestlers in the WWE?
Ooh, great question. Real quick on the last question while you're thinking, I love personal questions. I feel like that's the charge that keeps it like exciting, getting into some facet or be able to tell some random story. And Pete feels the same way, so definitely ask both Pete and I personal questions.
Well, I especially feel like the fact that at least once, if not twice a year, Pete tells some crazy story that we never heard before.
A story where he's like, "Oh, did you know I was briefly in space?" And we're like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, my high school friend Trash Can was on the Canadian space team. And we went into space."
Trash Can.
A lot of weird nicknames.
I'm laughing because I would have a friend named Trash Can.
Yeah.
So WWE persona and entrance music. Alex, which Backstreet song would you think you'd go with?
Oh man, I was actually, the first thing that came to mind was "Wannabe" by the Spice Girls.
Cool. That's definitely in the neighborhood. Definitely in the neighborhood.
Same sort of thing. Maybe I do like the dance, do the "Wannabe" dance. I know the "Oops, I Did It Again" dance more, so maybe I should do that actually.
Yeah, that's good. So you're just gonna do the oops dance? Come out.
Yeah, and I'll lip sync to it a little bit, and maybe I'll get to the part where she talks about the movie Titanic, and then I'll stop, and then I'll do the wrestling match or whatever it is you do.
Nice, good, you get it. How about "Ooh, Baby, I Love Your Way"? And I'll come out in a full zip up pleather, over my face as well. Unzip it and be completely nude underneath.
Wow,
nice.
I wouldn't want to see that, but that is a heck of an entrance. I think I would kick it old school, and I would come out to probably like either like Beastie Boys or Ice Cube or something, and be on a big wheel and be wearing my snowsuit. Because like when I was a little kid and I was like insulated for winter, I felt indestructible. I got giant moon boots and big like like snow pants and a giant jacket, So if I'm going to wrestle, I'm going to need padding. So that's what I'm going with.
We'd be a great trio. And people could be like, it would be literally the definition of insanity if the three of us came out at the same time using those three ideas.
Yeah. Here's a question from Pete's Punisher Slippers over on Crowdcast. Kind of sad one. What's your fondest memory of going to a movie?
Oh, wow.
Great call.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I almost want to say going to the movie theater with Justin on my birthday, but he's been such a dick about it afterwards. Like in the moment, I felt
sit with me. We said hello. We said hello like strangers. We might as well have bumped into each other there. And then you were like, "Well, I'm going to go see this garbage movie."
This is the difference. You were insulted. I've never felt more close to you. Like we got to
we weren't close.
We went to the movie theater. We decided, oh man, we don't have the same taste. You wanting me to see the movie that I wanted to see on my birthday, let me go and see that. And it was like this nice moment where I got to, enjoy the movie that I wanted to see and not have to sit through something I didn't want to see just to appease my friend.
I like the idea. You're going to be the guy who's like, after being married for 40 years, is like, my favorite part of this marriage, that we finally moved into other rooms. We finally don't have to see each other except for at breakfast.
No. Oh my God.
Favorite movie experience? I'm gonna go throw it out to. I may have said this in the show. When I saw the first Muppet remake with my family, I sobbed through the movie, like ugly through the whole movie, and I didn't realize how much I identified with Kermit the Frog and had grown up watching the Muppet Show and had gone into theater and like was into like, let's all put on a show together. I love that. And watching that movie where it had all fallen apart for him was devastating to me. My family still talks about it. They're like, you cried in Mulan, and then you actively dehydrated yourself watching the Muppet.
Oh man,
tough. I've had a lot of fun in movies.
Yeah.
I know you talk to the screen like a weird old man.
As you should. I mean, I remember I had a really good time at Lord of the Rings, the third one. I went and saw it with a bunch of people, and we were like kind of yelling at each other back and forth, and that was really fun. I really wanted that movie. It had like 3 endings, and I was like, we get it already, wrap it up.
So your good experience was heckling?
Getting some good laughs from the people around you.
Christ.
Yeah.
I think somebody asked something similar on Twitter the other day, memorable movie screenings. And that reminded me of the screening for Blair Witch that I went to, which I probably told this story on the show, but it was opening weekend of Blair Witch. Nobody knew what the movie was. They just knew that there was like a lot of hype on it. And I think they did this in a couple of theaters around the country, but at the main one in Manhattan, they had a display in the lobby of like artifacts that were left over from the documentary filming of Blair Witch to make you think that it was real and everything. So like they had really done it up to make you think like, okay, this is a documentary. And nobody knew anything about it. But I remember so distinctly going packed movie theater on the Upper West Side. I don't remember which movie theater. And everybody in the theater, like through the first half, just laughing, like typical like nervous horror movie laughs. And as the movie went on, you could just feel the air pulling out of the theater. And everybody was completely silent the entire time through the entire second half of the movie. And through the credits, like nobody moved. Everybody sat completely still and watched the credits roll up until right at the end of the credits. A guy in the very front of the theater, and this was like probably 1,000-seat theater. It was a huge theater. A guy in the front of the theater stands up and says, excuse me. And I don't know what everybody else is thinking, but personally, living in New York, I was like, oh, this guy's going to ask for money or something like that. Here we go. What's going to happen? He's like, excuse me. I live in New Jersey, and I have to drive home past the woods. Is this movie real? And immediately, everybody in the movie theater was like, yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's a documentary. It's great. Wow.
That's fantastic.
So funny. It was the best time.
Yo, if that dude was scared about driving past the woods in New Jersey, he's got a rough life ahead of him.
He already lives in New Jersey. Things are already going real bad for him.
Wow, yes, slam.
There you go.
But I gotta say, like, just seeing something in a packed audience of just fans for like different Marvel movies and stuff has just been a complete blast. A lot of like sharing information and stuff. Like, it's just I hope it's something we get to experience again.
Nice. We got a question here. Oh man, there's a bunch of them coming through. Let me scroll through. This is from David 2020. Who is the Green Hornet and who is the Kato of you three?
Wow.
Good question.
I hate to say it, but I think it's 3 Katos. Bummer.
Nice. Another one that I want to address. This is from CT Cook. He says, the question is for Alex. What was the best comic you got with my Midtown gift card? I hit us up on comicbookclublive@gmail.com. Not quite sure what you mean by that, but it sounds like maybe something went wrong with it. If you want something in the trivia, just hit us up and let us know, and we will figure.
No, Alex, you stole from him, right?
Yeah, no, I
it sounds
steal
like you
from most of
stole
our
from-
guests.
Yeah.
No, I definitely didn't. Something sounds like it went wrong. Let us go over here to actually doing some vetting. Do you like it when I say that out loud?
Being
Yeah,
risky.
I like when I kind of hear you typing into your computer.
Yeah.
I like when I hear you thinking into your brain.
Squeak, squeak. This is from Joe. What comics creators, if any, would each of you be afraid to have on as guests, either to do feelings on their work or them as a person, or even just the don't meet your heroes type fear?
Rick Remender.
Don't mean your
scared.
enemies.
Oh,
I'm
this
scared.
is a weird reason you bring that up, Pete. Rick Remender is going to be on next week's show.
Yes.
This is not a
yes.
joke. I'm not joking about this.
That's
yeah,
real. I can't wait.
I'm nervous. Hopefully, he doesn't remember the
His name is Rick
Right.
Remember.
We're gonna turn on his camera, and he's gonna have a wall with the pictures of like do not serve this man, and it's a
Yeah.
sketched picture of you, Pete.
That's very funny.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to relive that Frankencastle thing because my opinion hasn't changed. And, I don't want to have to redo that with him.
Well, we're talking about Seven to Eternity, which I believe you like,
Yes.
so it should be okay.
But somebody's going to ask
Also,
something.
you're an adult, and you can handle this.
You can handle this, Pete. We're not going to throw you under the bus, Pete.
Aren't
You're
you?
Never
already,
do that.
in my mind, you're already under the bus, and I'm just
You
driving
can't
over
keep
top of
throwing me under the bus.
Back and forth.
Yeah, you
just
just
back
keep
and
backing
forth.
up over me.
it. You live under the bus. When you
I
moved
know
to
I don't.
Philadelphia, that's when you moved under the bus.
Yeah. Who are you? Is there anybody you're scared or would be concerned
Intimidated?
about having on the show? Intimidated in any way?
I'm trying to think. I talked about this last week, but Neil Gaiman was an intimidating time. Mostly because he sat there in silence while we were just waiting to get the cameras up and just started talking. I was like, oh man, how do I ride this hurricane? But I don't know. No, I feel like at this point we've talked to a lot of people, and I feel like just know enough about comics that like everybody we could make a conversation with almost anybody. And especially like you said, if it's the three of us, I'm not worried about anybody.
Yeah. There's a couple of names that are being brought up here in the comments. I don't want to call anybody out or anything like that, but I think first of all, say on people that are controversial or have done things that have sort of made everybody sour on them, to put it nicely. Generally, yeah, Dr. No. We tried not to actually have them on the show or invite them.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are times when we've made mistakes or we've had people on the show that either later information came out about them or maybe we didn't know at the time. But if that ever happens, definitely people let us know. We are happy to adjust. But a couple of names that I'll call out here that actually, to Justin's point, have been good. Grant Morrison is a hard interview because he has such a thick accent and he talks so crazy fast, but he's also fun to talk
he's
to.
fun.
at the
Oh yeah,
same
he's
time.
wild.
You walk away like feeling like you've been to another dimension after you talk to Grant Morrison.
Yeah, and Edward Doherty over here says Brian Azzarello. I'll mention about
we
that.
love that guy.
Here's the thing about Brian Azzarello. Like, we've talked about this on the show before. You have to, A, first of all, know what you're talking about when you're talking to Brian Azzarello, and B, talking to him about something he actually wants to talk about. Like, if there is a book, you clearly have not done your work, and he doesn't really want to talk about it, like maybe it was a quick thing he wrote, he'll be like, no, yes, no.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
got to prove yourself to Brian
Exactly.
Azzarello, and then
But we
once
put
you're
some
in-
quality time in with that gentleman.
yeah,
Haven't
exactly.
we? Haven't we, Mr. LePage?
Yeah, yeah,
He was a good drinking buddy
yeah.
on
he
our
was-
cruise ship days.
Yeah, because Zalbin was with his family, so we needed a third.
And we
third
formed a
meal.
new family.
Yeah, yeah,
Azzarello was our Alex for a short time.
yeah. That's
Exactly. But yeah, the point being, like, I think pretty much anybody can be good. You just sort of almost have to figure out how to talk to them. And
But I do think the point a little bit is there somebody who would be like intimidating to you, like somebody you hold in such reverence, or their work means so much to you?
I mean, I'll tell you, one that I think about a lot is we interviewed at New York Comic Con Joss Whedon, Tabo Petticat for Dollhouse when that was just getting ready to launch. And I was talking about nervous. I was so nervous getting into that interview because I loved Joss Whedon at the time, loved Buffy, loved Angel, loved Firefly. I was like palms sweating, and then got to the interview. And the thing that made it easy is like Joss Whedon was fine as an interview, but like Tabo Petticat was really good, and it was fun
Super
chatting
spike.
with him.
Yeah.
And immediately it switched as soon as we got into the interview, where I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is fine. This is not a problem. This is all
I
good."
think we do that one together.
I believe so.
Remember?
Yeah. It was just I was definitely like nervously pacing the room beforehand, and it turned out to be not much. Let's go over to YouTube. Deliso Chapanda Comedy says, "What graphic novel do you recommend for someone who just finished Lock and Key?"
Whoa! Well, congratulations, first
Yes.
off. Way to survive that thing. It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, what's a good follow-up to Lock and Key, do you think? I mean, this is a retroactive one. I think if you've never read Sandman, they've talked about like that's the direct precedent in certain ways to Lock and Key, and then they're going to be doing the sequel series Hell and Gone that's going to tie into it together. So that's a good one to check out. Also, this is probably an easier answer as well, but if you don't know, Hill House, the Hill House line of comics from Joe Hill that he just did over at DC Comics are all great. Basketful of Heads is one of the ones that he wrote. There's a couple of others that I'm blanking the name of, but look for the Hill House line collections, and those are all really good, and I think a direct line from those as well. Do you guys have any other suggestions?
I would say,
Go ahead.
I would say Why the Last Man is, if you haven't read that, is really great. I don't know. It's hard because I don't like a lot of horror stuff like this. For some reason, kind of was okay, even though it was very scary. Also, anytime I can shout out Murder Falcon, I'm gonna put it out there.
I'm trying to think of something sort of in line with Lock and Key, and a book that we've been reviewing that's just started to come out. And we had the writer on a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. An Unkindness of Ravens.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Very much in line, sort of striding the line between Lock and Key and Sabrina, the Sabrina TV show. I think that's a good pickup if you're looking for a follow-up. That's not collected yet, so you'd have to pick it up in single issues, I think. But great.
I'm completely blanking on the name of this, but it was a book by Peter J. Gleason. I think it came out from Image Comics, and it was about this old-timey criminal ends up working on a house, and there's just like veins pouring through the house.
Oh yeah, what was that thing?
I'm completely blanking on the name. I was just looking it up here on my phone.
Oh, that was so good.
It's called House of something.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
House of M? No, it wasn't.
No, it was not House of M. Was it by Peter Tomasi, or was it by? It was by Peter Tomasi, right?
That I don't know, but it was about the woman who inherited the gun fortune and felt guilt about House of Penance. That's what it is.
House of Penance. Yes, there you go.
Thank you, Beercat PH or Adriel Moreland, I guess. Great book, beautifully drawn.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of recommendations for you. Also, another one here from Chase Porter. Speaking of controversial guests, are you all keeping an arm's length from EVS? Yes.
And you know what's easy? Keeping an arm's length from EVS, because why? What's the deal? Who cares about hearing what that person has to say?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's Aaron mentions this is a politics podcast. Absolutely, we delve heavily into politics here. But no, people like that are being like negative influences on the comic book industry. We don't need to have them on here. We don't need to talk about them. We don't need to hear what they have to say or hear their point of view or anything like that. They're being mean online, and that sucks. First Stand Up Guide Man says this is a politics podcast that meanders a lot. Yes, that is 100% accurate.
Thanks for bringing up the meandering.
Yeah. Great question here from I Wonder Woman. I wonder what's everyone's fursona. What is your fursona, Pete, we'll start with you. I assume it's some sort of bear or fox or something like that.
What is Sona? What are you talking about?
Fursona. Fursona. What's your fursona?
Your animal.
Pablo says, "What's a fursona?" I don't know. What's a fursona with you?
Oh my God,
Alex, what is?
Somebody else go first.
Listen, man, my kids don't go to in-person school anymore. Stuck with them all day.
You got too much pumpkin. You get too much.
But
You got cinnamon booze in your brain.
Yeah, what's the like animal version of you, Pete? Like human animal version, like the sexy human animal version. What's that?
I think it's some kind of cross between Wolverine and a turtle.
Wow, what does that mean? Like a disaster? Some sort of radioactive disaster.
Yeah.
Great. I feel like I'm a little more turtle than you, honestly, Pete.
Wow, what a flex! The ultimate flex.
All right.
I think I'm a little more turtle than you, bro.
Pretty. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with. Trying to think of a. I don't know. See, I feel like I'm furrier now than I'm not normally quite so furry, so I feel like
take it easy.
Yeah. Justin seems fox-like says the comments.
Yeah. What's a spazzy animal that doesn't shut up?
You say spaz? A lot of animals don't like a. What about a loon?
You did trick me into eating those grapes once.
That's true. That's true.
Great question over there. Let's go to another one. This is from Pablo. What is the best comic book you've ever read with the worst science logic? And I'll mention Jim, our guest, actually answered this one. He says, I'd have to go with Spider-Man in the first few years where the science from the origin on is really goofy and implausible, but the stories are tattooed on my brain forever. The Flash from the same period is also really goofy science-wise, and they tried hard to hang the plots on plausible science concepts, but it rarely holds together. Do you guys have an answer to that one? Favorite, best comic book, worst science logic?
That's such a good answer because both those comics were like, these characters are scientists. They're always around science. And here's this insane science that turned them into superheroes. It doesn't make any sense. Bad science? I mean, the idea in both the Star Trek and Superman movies that you could fly backwards around the sun and go back in time is shockingly stupid.
Well, what about the saran wrap Superman symbol that you just throw out of his chest that he never did?
I wouldn't say that's science necessarily.
Yeah, well, I was pulled me right out of that guy movie. For me, the Thundercats cartoon, when I rewatched it, I couldn't believe some of the weird stuff that they kind of wrote.
They didn't respect science, those Thundercats.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
There's some personas if you want to talk about personas.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Panthro is my persona.
I love it. This is from CT Kook. Why can't anyone write a good Namor comic? What writer and artist do you think could best write the Namor comic? Sorry, Alex. Oh, I assume that's in reference to the thing about the gift card comment. No worries at all.
Quit robbing him.
Yeah, give him his money.
Yeah,
money now, man.
I think Namor is a tough character because he's such a jerk.
Yeah,
and so much of his. But I think it's easy. It could be easy to establish sort of an underneath to that him being a jerk. That would be great. I mean, I think Dennis would be a great writer on Namor to really find the grounding underneath.
Are you just called Dennis a jerk?
No, I'm saying Namor's a jerk, but to find what makes him constantly have to act that way.
Also, maybe Matthew Rosenberg. He did a good run on Hawkeye. Hawkeye Freefall is fun, and like they're different characters. Hawkeye is a sad jerk, while Namor is a serious jerk. But he could make it funny. I think he could do a good job.
I mean, I think Namor has a lot of Doctor Doom qualities. So I think like Hickman, I think someone said would be a good. He has written Namor, in the Fantastic Four, but I think like really a full-on exploration of that would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian Azzarello would be fun just because he's kind of a darker individual and likes getting into that kind of like meanness of stuff. Like, so it'd be interesting to see his take on it.
Plus, he's good at sea, as we know, because we were on a cruise ship.
There you go. Nelson Martinez on YouTube says, best Christmas gift you've ever received as a kid.
Wow.
My first comics in the stocking, Avengers Atlantis Attacks. I was like, what the devil is this? I read it so many times. Comics in the stocking.
Wow. I used to get little, on Christmas morning, my parents would leave tiny little presents in the fireplace. And as soon as I asked, oh, why don't we also have a Christmas tree? They said, okay, you're going to Hebrew school. So,
Wow. Ouch.
Wow,
That took a
Alex,
turn.
with the dig on the holiday season.
I think I've told this story before, so excuse me if you've heard this before, but I got this remote control tank one year, and there was this very rich kid in our class who, for show and tell, would always bring in the coolest thing. And I brought in my tank, and he had this super fast race car that was very expensive. And I
Wait, can I just interrupt for a real quick second? This feels like an actual formative story in Pete's personality. if I may just say that. This feels like the Pete right here.
Well, let's not hype it up, before we
Let me I don't know where this goes, but I just feel my my Pete origin senses.
I don't like how well this is built up. But basically, he was racing his car around, and I ran it over and broke it. And it was I felt like everybody else, instead of crowding around, he had a big crowd around him. Everybody kind of crowded around me, and I was like, "Oh my god, this very, like, my remote control tank had a wire. Like, it was very, obviously very cheap and not well made, but it was fun to see. This is the kind of first taste, like, you don't always have to spend money, so it was kind of cool."
Let's get one last question here and then start to wrap this up. This is a nice one from Nick Kelly. What's a story that you wish you could forget and read again for the first time?
Oh, that's a great question.
Great question. I'm trying to think of I have one short long box here in my basement with all the canon, the faves from the deep dark past. And it's got all of Starman in it. It's got Bone in it. It's got Aquaman Time and Tide, the very short 4-issue series.
Just flexing on us.
Not a flex, just a comic. Just a series of comics about. That's the lowest flex you can do on a comic book podcast.
I own comics.
And all my Sandman comics. So I'd like to forget that whole box and reread all of those.
Yeah, that would be fun to kind of rediscover your boxes. I think, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Eastman and Laird as a kid, blew my mind. It would be interesting to see what the reaction would be like.
You could just watch the TV show.
How dare you, sir? Don't spit. Don't spit. All right? That's just ridiculous. Okay? They're completely different. But also, sorry, Salb, that wasn't finished. The Too Cool to Be Forgotten was really very touching, and I cried.
By Alex Robinson?
Yeah, I would like to be able to redo that. But also, Lock and Key was so much fun. I mean, there's so many I could list. I mean, there's so much great stuff.
I wish I could forget all of them.
I wish I could forget all of them, all of this, everything. Just come back fresh as a baby.
This is kind of a Pete answer, but I'd say Concrete maybe is the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, that
the
is
book
a Pete
is
answer.
so good. It's so good.
Very
It
good.
just felt so revelatory to read it, both from the art and the writing perspective. To revisit that again for the first time would be great. And maybe now that I've said that, I want to read it again because it's just so good.
Let me be honest, Alex. I bet you forgot a lot of it.
I almost definitely had to the other questions we had here, lots of science in there. Science. So there you go. All right. That is it for your audience questions. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
And now it is time for our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn over to Pete LePage.
Pete LePage, the star of trivia. Time to take the stage.
Okay.
Pete the stage.
All right, this is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. We supposedly give you $25 free to Midtown Comics. If you don't piss off Selbin, you'll get your money.
The conspiracy theory dawning.
I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and all I need is a volunteer, and you will take a short trivia quiz, and then you'll win $25.
I just want to say, I love the idea that I take $25 of my personal money and then give myself $25 of comics and go, ha ha!
Dastardly.
Dastardly.
Look
A
behind the
scheme
curtain
for the
there.
ages. But no, write me. We will get you set up straight.
I'm just.
Pete, you're just
reading
looking
through-
for a first.
Yeah, I'm looking.
You're
for
waiting for a
volunteer.
first hand up person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we missed this. We have somebody over on YouTube. Chase
The
Porter
Tube.
says, me.
All
Me,
right.
me.
There you go. Chase Porter. Okay, here's how this is going to work. Just to break it down, you are going to get to answer some questions. Pete is going to ask them. We're on a little bit of a delay, so we're going to kill some time. But you throw your answers in the chat over there on YouTube. And at the end, I will steal $25 from you.
Great. All right. So today's trivia is on topical comic news. All right. Question number 1. There is a beautiful comic short collection called Embodied that combines comics and blank. Is it A, music, B, poetry, or is it C, Bill Nye? What does the beautifully drawn new series called Embodied combine comics and blank?
Did you say Bill Nye?
I did say Bill Nye.
Not an actor in the traditional sense.
Well, it's not Bill Nye the science guy. It's Bill Nye the actor who's been in a ton of stuff.
I'm not familiar with that persona. Is it a different person?
Yeah, 2 separate people.
Okay.
Zelb's waiting on you to give me the sign that he said.
Oh,
B,
yeah, no, keep
poetry,
talking.
B, poetry.
Chase is just
B,
very
correct.
excited that he's playing the trivia.
Yeah.
Chase, as soon as you hear this or hear
B,
Pete, just give
poetry
me
is what you want to.
He says, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
You,
there
you
we
want
go.
to say
That's
B,
recorded.
right? B?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Just type B, Chase. That's all you got to do. Oh, he says, what is poetry? Uh-oh.
Well, that's
Oh.
correct. Poetry
Oh,
is
man.
what we're looking for.
You've
So
got a whole new
he put
world
it in
to
a
open
question.
Oh, he
you
put it in
know.
the form of a question. Tribute to the late, great Alex Trebek. There you go. Let's get
Pete.
the next question, Pete.
Okay.
Alex that you're
What-
named after.
What big company just invested in manga for phone reading? Is it A, Sony, B, Apple, or C, Vincent D'Onofrio?
Absolute
either-
plague of mispronouncing Italian names.
Yeah, we're killing it today. So it's either A, which is what you want to
The
say,
inaccurate.
or you could say B.
So which one is it, Pete? I'm going to go with B. I say B.
No, it's not Apple. No.
Oh, it's not? It's not Apple?
No, it's
So
Sony.
C then.
No,
That's what
it's
we'll
not
let's
Vincent
consider C.
D'Onofrio. No,
And I'm
no.
sorry, did I not hear the D option?
There is no D. No, no.
All right,
there's
well,
All of the
A
above.
is
let's see
you
what
wanted.
Chase answers. Let's see if Chase answers A
Mhm,
or if he
mhm.
answers something else. I love this delay.
It's
Good.
fine.
Oh, Chase says A. There we go.
All right.
That's great.
Amazing. All right, let's
All
get
right.
that third question.
There was a 7-foot tall statue erected in Burbank, California, of whom? Is it A, Wonder Woman? Should have been. Or B, Batman? Or is it C, John Turturro? So it's either A, Wonder Woman, wish it was, or is it B, Batman?
Tricky. This is a tricky one. 7 foot tall. That's a tall statue. Is that life
It's a
size?
tall statue. It's
Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. So you would want to put B for Batman, so we can win $25 to Midtown Comics.
This happens on a lot of
Online.
trivia game shows. When no one answers, the host just says the answer out loud.
Yeah. Just you know.
Very classic thing to do.
Chase Porter has a hunch.
Hunch
There
is
you go.
coming in.
There we
Hunch
go.
is coming in. Could be anything.
We got
Let's
a hunch.
see. We got a hunch going on.
I also want to
like-
agree with Joe that Batman in California doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is Hollywood.
First Stand Up Guy is like most game shows. This is also very prompt. Go watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. They kill tons of time on that.
This is drama.
Stretch it out. We don't have commercial breaks in the middle. We don't come back from a commercial break. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. We don't have like. Wait,
what letter does Chase have to type again? A?
B.
B.
He would want to say B.
Chase would want to say B.
And then also the answer begins with B, which is being human.
Liwana, operating in 2 comment sections, says he typed it. He did type B.
Oh, there we go. Looks like my computer's just being slow or something. There we go.
Great.
All right. Congratulations, Chase. You have won a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. You know what? Technology is great. All I'm going to say is I have a new computer coming at some point in about a month. This whole process.
They got to build it first.
Let's definitely blame.
It's not
I'm gonna stream myself building it, just like Henry Cavill, and I think my stream's gonna be just as popular.
Yeah, definitely. Another flawless trivia. Everything made total sense. Let's do it again next week.
It's not
all right.
RV,
as we all know. Tomorrow,
human.
Being Human is the name of the Robin Williams movie. As we all know, tomorrow is New Comic Book Day, unless they're DC Comics, in which case it was already today. Dudes, what are you looking forward to? What's coming out that you're excited about?
A lot of good stuff tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Snake Eyes Dead Game, number 3 of 6, and The Other History of the DC Universe, number 1.
Yeah, I was going to pick that. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
It's really good. You should check it out.
Nice. Great history of Black Lightning's life, and it's very cool. But I will also say I'm excited about Department of Truth, which is written by James Tynion, and it
takes a shot at improv on that.
Yeah, it's about time someone took that ancient field, archaic field that is probably not going to exist again in the future, down. It's about how conspiracy theories can really infect a population to the point where they actually become real in this comic, and it's a great book. This next issue I'm super excited about.
I'm looking forward to Power Pack number 1 from Marvel Comics is coming out. Very excited to see them back. Ryan North is writing it. Good classic. Power Pack Adventures, the whole gang back together. Very exciting. All of those comics, very coincidentally, are going to be reviewed in our Stack podcast, which comes out in the Comic Book Club feed or in its own Stack feed Wednesday at 9 a.m. And folks, I think that is it for the podcast.
Yeah.
So before we go, a couple of things we want to mention. First of all, we want to thank most of our guests. Jim Odaviani, the writer of The Naturalist, that is on stands now from Island Press. Also, Dennis Hallum, writer of Exo Manowar, issue 2 is out tomorrow, as well as Sea of Stars from Image and a bunch of other great books that you should definitely check out. Next week on the show, we've teased it, but T.E. Marshall is going to be here talking in Teddy We Trust. So that should be very exciting about Violent Teddy Bear. Oh, also, Rick Remender is going to be here talking about 17 Eternity, the Scumbag, hopefully a bunch of other stuff. Should be very exciting.
The thing we've always said about that is, like, obviously Pete is trying to punch a frequent guest on the show, Nat Townsend. But little known fact, Rick Remender has said he's going to punch Pete for the last couple of years, so maybe it'll happen.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. A couple of other things to plug. Umbrella Podcademy, our Umbrella Academy podcast, comes out on Thursdays. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support this show and other shows we do. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and many more. At Comic Book Live on Twitter. Until next time, Comic Book Club out.
Yeah, mic drop from Alec.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.